Most people don't know the OK symbol. For a lot of folks means white power. I'm not going to do the
Dude,
symbol.
no, but it doesn't. That
It,
was
but
a
it, but that
4chan.
was,
That was a 4chan
but
troll.
now,
Like it was
now
made
it
up as a
is.
joke.
I'm personally a pansexual. I don't care what genitalia someone has. I like someone for who they are.
Welcome back to Slightly Offensive with your favorite QPOC, me, Elijah Schaefer. This is our weekly podcast that airs every Friday at 12 p.m. Shortened versions on YouTube. The full version's available, audio only for download wherever you can stream podcasts or download them, as well as the full video podcast on blazetv.com/slightly-offensive. If you're not a member of BlazeTV, you can use the code Elijah in the description to get our best price ever. Yes, normally $99 for an entire year. With the discount is now only $69. You get $30 off, where you get our content and much, much more. Anyway, my guest today is a far-left anti-fascist, which many of us call Antifa. He is also the organizer of some of the protests that we've attended and filmed. I want to welcome to the show Jason Charter.
Thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously you're out there in Washington, D.C., and that is a great place. I love going out there. I know that, from my understanding, were you at the protest that we were at last year out in D.C.?
Which one? There's been a lot of them.
The big one, the freedom one, the really big one where the two groups were out there. I don't even know what it was called, but it was
The
big.
July 4th rally that the demand free speech rally, I think you're
The
talking about on
demand-free
July
speech
6th.
rally, yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Awesome.
I was one of the organizers of All Out DC.
No pasarán! No pasarán!
What'd you come out here for, mostly?
There was three hotties in my periphery when we started, so
It's a good start.
defined the beginning of the interview.
See,
But I'm
and-
happy to discuss economics and the...
Well, I thought you came out here to talk, but then I realized...
Wait, you're the
I
guy who
suck.
gets beat up.
Yeah.
I thought you were gay.
Jason Charter, what do you consider yourself as an activist? What groups do you associate with?
So I wouldn't call anti-fascists a group. I would call them it's an ideology. Anti-fascism is an ideology, and I identify myself as an anti-fascism, as someone who is against fascism. There is no anti-fascist, umbrella organization. It's not like Mike Cernovich's Proud Boys, who, not Cernovich's, McGinnis's Proud Boys, who, are a structured organization where, just a group of activists around the country who have the same political ideology and believe that fascism needs to be stopped.
So are you saying that there's no way to actually stamp out Antifa because there's no way to break down, let's say, a structure of leadership?
I think most people who identify as an anti-fascist would tell you that we don't have leaders. We're against leadership. We're against hierarchy, that we believe in horizontal organizing, which means that everyone is treated equally, that everyone's voice is heard equally.
And that has a little bit of communist undertones. And I've seen a lot of Antifa they'll either be pro-communism or they'll be anarchists. I've even met someone who called himself a communist anarchist, or I at least saw an interview with that. Yeah, what is that?
So anarcho-communism is the idea of taking anarchism, this idea of no government, and bringing it to bringing communism into a small level, and bringing it down to the local level in your own communities, seizing the means of production, creating collectives in your own neighborhood, and not really relying on a centralized government like you've seen in the USSR, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right. So obviously, my understanding and my personal experience with Antifa, or I know you like to call them anti-fascists. I'll just keep the Antifa for shorter for myself.
That's
Is that there is a lot of movement towards using violence and vandalism to get their points across. How do you, when you say like at a smaller level to push the anarcho-communism, how do they hope to accomplish that, or what are their means of getting to that end?
So I don't think that anti-fascism is just going out in the street and fighting fascists. There's a lot more to it. There are folks who the most of the work's actually done behind a screen. It's finding where a fascist works. It's finding who they are, finding out especially groups like you've seen Patriot Front, who goes out in mass, fully masked up. And these guys are pushing racist, white supremacist ideologies. So they feel, folks in the anti-fascist community feel that these folks need to be outed. So most of the work that anti-fascists do are actually just finding out who these people are and making sure their employers know, making sure if they're at a school, making sure their schools know, and just making sure the general public knows who these people are.
You mean like
In
doxing?
terms, sure, if you want to call it that. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I've seen sometimes, people do not do it correctly, and that's been an issue. But overall, that is the best way to stop a fascist, is to make them outed as a fascist, because for most of them, they don't want their family and friends to know who they are and what they believe. So when people like Richard Spencer, when people like Alex Jones, when people like Gavin McInnes, when people like Joe Vival and all these other crazy people out there, Jack Posobiec for one, going out there and putting out these racist, misogynist, using gaslighting to do it, it's creating a form and where people can hear these ideologies, and what people are doing is taking action from listening to these public speakers, to these people who represent themselves, who represent an ideology, who represent a group, who represent a type of way of feeling in America. And I think that's something that we need to stop. I think deplatforming is a great tool, and deplatforming Richard Spencer, Laura Loomer, for instance, is another one. These people should not be on Twitter. I know Richard's got his Twitter back, but he lost his verified status. But getting a lot of
there's real fast. There's a huge difference though between Richard Spencer, because here's what I want to say is, like, when we start saying words are violence or can be, and we use Hitler. Well, Hitler's like kind of like a monolith, and I understand that you're going, okay, this guy, but he was running a political regime. Now, we're not talking about a guy who was an activist, or this is a guy running a political party. Right? This is the Nazi party. This is specifically a party trying to gain power with a set of ideologies. And if you're trying to stop him and you're considering to be violent, that's someone who's trying to seize control of the military.
I have a counterpoint right there.
Yeah.
How many Proud Boys are currently running for Congress?
There's a few people with association.
There's at least a dozen Proud Boys that have run for Congress since Donald Trump has won the election. So when I see a violent group like the Proud Boys, one who have people in jail for assaulting people in New York, when Gavin was walking around with a katana, Gavin, take the fucking sword off and use your fist like a man. I apologize for language. I know we're on television here, but these people are a violent group, and there's no way to say that they aren't. And their words and have created actions that have resulted in people getting hurt, and will continue to result in people getting hurt.
Because my goal here is not to to shock the crowd and prove you wrong or something. My goal is to get into your mind here, and this is true for people listening that are wondering, why don't you say this or that? This is not a gotcha interview to get Antifa and get them in their words. This is a genuine podcast, which I'm hoping could set precedent for the future if the sides could just actually speak to each other instead of trying to be assholes 100% of the time. When you talk about someone like Richard Spencer, it's clear to point out to me, this guy is not a good guy because of A, B, C, or D. And if you would stop this guy for A, B, C, and D, or this A, B, C, and D he said has led to this, that, and that, I can listen and I can get on board and try to understand. And if you say, like you said, if Hitler's on Twitter, you go, Hitler's calling for anti-Semitism. He's deeming this. He's trying to gain power of the military, right? And he's not bound. He's an authoritarian. He's trying to introduce fascism, which would then limit the Constitution and give him authority. He's moving in this direction. You'd go, real fast. I'm saying I could understand that, but when you start throwing out all these names, what I think even confuses people is where do we draw the line and actually have some sort of standard of truth to actually understand this? Because I myself would not consider. I don't think I'm as out there, or I don't agree with you, but in your terms, I don't think I'm as extreme in certain things I've said or would say as a lot of the people that you're mentioning. And I don't think I share a lot of their beliefs, especially Richard Spencer. I really don't like him. I think he actually holds a lot of weird left-wing ideas. He's more of a left-winger. My ideas
you do love
right
Jack
wing.
Posobiec, right? You are friends with Jack.
I'm personal friends with him, yeah.
Yeah, Jack and I have a history. Jack spread the Pizzagate rumor. He literally created a situation where a guy shot up Comet Pizza. I live down the road from Comet Pizza. That place was shot up because of a conspiracy theory that Jack Posobiec and others spread. So their words have real world consequences. And they use dog whistles. Like when Trump says deport all the illegals, what he's really saying is get all the Latinx people out of this country. When he's saying make America great again, he means make America white again. When he says let's take it back to the old days, he's saying let's take it back to the 50s where white people ruled this country. Using
how do we know
whistle
that
terms.
though? Like, because that's what I think happens. Because for me, I get attacked all the time when I'm trying to cover these things. People call me a fascist.
I've seen your Twitter.
Yeah, people call me a fascist. How can I prove to them, like, if there's these ideas like, well, when Trump says this, he means this, but where's the facts, Jason? That's why I want to say, like, how do we know that? Because I understand that we need to have intuition, and I get that, because if you don't use intuition, I mean, if, like, for instance, if we didn't use intuition with the Chinese government, with Xi Jinping, and we took him at his word on the coronavirus, 100% China's lying. It's a communist dictatorship. It's authoritarian,
I'd love to get into that after this, but continue.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but when it comes to these ideas of looking into things and assuming, right? Doesn't this lead to a lot of confusion with the average person? Because when we say this is fascism, but it's not clear. It's like, well, fascism now is an overarching thing, and it can be like this, and it's this lifestyle. And then there's Laura Loomer. Like, Laura Loomer and Richard Spencer are very different. Like, Laura Loomer is a Zionist Jew.
Really?
I mean, like,
so Laura Loomer
much
assaulted
different.
me at a Friends of Abe event that James O'Keefe was speaking at, stole my ID and put it on Twitter. She has literally said awful things about Muslim people in this nation, has been banned from Uber, has been banned from Lyft, and has been banned from various other social media sites, including Twitter. Now she's using, she has a organization, Loom Media, but like her words are really bad, and she doesn't even use dog whistles. Like, I don't even have to sit here and be like, oh no, she used this word, then it means this. No, she's directly used bad words that have actual connotation to them. When I'm talking about dog whistles, though, these are words being used by the government that they say one thing they're doing, and then they, separating families as a way to quote unquote stop, illegal immigration. That's not really, that's a dog whistle for we're going to make it so difficult for these people. We're going to harm them. We're going to put them into separate cages, cause severe trauma to these children. I mean, I don't know a 7-year-old who wouldn't get traumatized by getting their parents taken away from them and locked in a cage for months on end, and then have to go into a trial where they have to speak in English when they don't even know English. These things have these dog whistle words, these phrases that Donald Trump uses, that Jack Posobiec uses, that Mike Cernovich uses, that most of the alt-right and the alt-right use are terms that mean something else. And there is some great dictionaries out there. I know you're not a huge fan of Jared Holt, but I'm sure he has a dictionary out there of, right-wing terms that mean something else that are dog whistles. And I think that if Americans understood the meaning behind these words, and I don't think the American people are foolish. I think that they're just misled, and I think that we as a public need to do a better job of, letting folks know that when someone's saying one thing, they really mean something else. Like, most people don't know the OK symbol, for a lot of folks, means white power. I'm not going to do the symbol.
Jay, no, but it doesn't. That was a 4chan. That was a 4chan troll. It was made up as a joke.
It was made up as a joke, but now it's become an actual serious thing. So when I'm out at any right-wing event, I am seeing people put up the OK symbol all the time.
You don't think they're trolling you, though? Because like, to be honest, what I know about most right-wing people, they, like, if they know the left thinks something's a dog whistle, they purposely, they think, like, and I would say this myself, it's like, it's so outrageous that we're thought of as fascists and all this stuff that we go, it's so funny how we can, like, say a frog and a OK symbol, all this stuff are racist, and it makes us laugh. And so then when it's kind of like triggering, like, you have a little sister, and when you pull on her pigtail, she, like, freaks out, and it's kind of mean, and it's like, well, if you're a little brother, you shouldn't pull on your sister's pigtail. But you see, like, your little, you see, like, your sibling out there, because we're politically charged, you're politically charged, and we know that all we have to do is make the OK symbol, and then everyone thinks you're a white supremacist, and they get all freaked out and write articles. We in our background, we all laugh at that. Like, do you guys not get that?
But what about the 14 words? That probably started out as a joke. What else? 1312. 1312 is a dog whistle on the left. That means all cops are bastards. ACAB. there are dog whistles on both sides, and I
Be
think
gay,
that
do crimes. What about be gay, do crimes? What does that mean?
Be gay, do crime. Be gay, do crime. Be gay, do crime. Be gay, do crime.
Pretty high. I personally don't think gay is like, oh, you're either gay or you're not. I think it's a sliding scale. Oh, you're a little bit gay. You might have you like one guy. That's cool. Like everything is a sliding scale. I think the left is just more open to our
I'm a little gay
to
for
our
Trump.
Feelings. I mean, if you are, that's good for you. I mean,
like
I
him.
personally am not gay for Trump. I will never be gay for Trump. Unless being gay for Trump means he'll resign his presidency, I will never be gay for Trump. Sorry, I don't know what we were talking about. I
No, we just said
apologize.
be gay, do crime, and these things with violence.
It's
I wanted to know what these mean. I don't get it.
I think that the left is generally more likely to be gay, bi, trans. They're more likely to be part of the LGBTQIA plus community. Because the right wing does not accept them. Look at our vice president, for instance, Mike Pence. He helped pave the way for conversion therapy in his state. Has passed numerous laws to protect it. It's an evil practice that literally takes people and tries to make them think differently than they were born thinking. I was born this way. I wasn't, I wasn't made gay. Despite Alex Jones and his ranting about how the frogs are turning us all gay. God made me gay, not the frogs, Alex.
I was atrazine that turned the frogs gay, though. Never forget that. Let me ask you this then, because we were talking about this with the community defense. Obviously, talking about I didn't even. A lot of people didn't know the whole LGBT. There's a huge amount in the community, but were you familiar with the protests against the violent protests that ended up breaking out against the Trump rally in Ilhan Omar's district in Minnesota later last year?
I am not. I'm sorry.
And we have mace already flying. People are beginning to get arrested in violence.
Every Trump hat I've seen today has been taken. People look at you looking like a motherfucking...
So we got some Trump hats that were set on fire here today. On my left, we have over here the actual police officers who are trying to allow cars to exit safely, but Antifa and other groups have joined together to try to block the police.
These are actual hats. They still smell like... Oh, they do. They still smell like soot. So these hats, people were stealing these Trump hats, including Antifa. There was quite a bit of Antifa there. I would say the Antifa there were a little bit more peaceful than the actual, the Black Lives Matter and the DSA and stuff were a little bit more violent at that one. But they were stealing the Trump hats off people. We saved a bunch, and they were lighting them on fire. At one point, creating an entire bonfire of these hats. What would you categorize that as?
Sounds a little reminiscent of Donald Trump's inauguration. There was a giant bonfire of "Make America Great Again" hats on his inauguration. What do I categorize that as?
Yeah, what is that? But I mean, is that okay? They felt justified. I asked the people, and they were like, "Yeah, no, that's a Nazi scalp, is what people call these specifically." Which I don't know, and I want to know what your thoughts. I mean, that's a crime, right? Is that when you say be gay, do crimes? Is that include stealing someone's property, like their hat, and lighting it on fire? I mean, is this justified? Is this okay?
I don't necessarily define crime as the law defines it, as American law defines it. There is natural crime and there is natural law, and I think that we as humans, sometimes.
What's natural crime? Tell me.
Something that may be considered illegal under the law isn't necessarily illegal. Have you ever jaywalked in your life?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely illegal here.
You committed a crime right there. Have you ever gone over the speed limit?
Oh, I've committed crimes, dude. I've done a ton of drugs in my life.
You know, a lot of people.
Definitely. I haven't killed anyone. But I've definitely committed crimes.
So, it's a way for a community to express their frustration. Rioting is the language of the unheard, is a phrase used that was said by Martin Luther King Jr. When he was still alive. When people are so oppressed, attacked so much, and brought down so much that sometimes the only way they can get their voices heard is to do something extraordinary, is to do something out of the realm of reasonable to most people, and that's totally fine. We don't know, I can't. I can't tell a black person how to react to something. So, if they choose to react to something, that they see as hateful, I'm going to say, okay, that must be hateful, because black people are telling me it's hateful, to them, the same way if I'm not going to use the word, but if someone, used the derogatory term against Jews, I would consider that hateful. And, those words, these derogatory phrases sometimes lead to action, and sometimes lead to people taking action in community defense against the people who are spouting these hateful ideologies, as I've said before.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask you this. What is then your philosophy then? If with all this being said, right, you believe these things about the administration, about commentators like Gavin, and then you have these ideas, these hashtags, these ideas about billionaires, all this coming together. So many things we could talk about. We could spend hours in the future breaking apart other things. But then overall, then this has to go from just a philosophy to action, and there has to be an end point. What does an ideal America look like to you then, if your ideas were implemented, or anti-fascist, and I'm not using you as a spokesperson for everyone, but if in general, if you can use your mind and intuition to kind of take this, what's an ideal Jason anti-fascist America look like?
So I personally work for a political party, obviously not the one, not the Republicans, and I have done a lot of work to elect people, because I do still believe that there is some form that we can elect people who will create better laws, who will create a better America. And a better America for me, and I said I would drop out of politics if three things happened. If universal basic income came in, and a real universal basic income, not the $1,000 whatever thing that the Yang Gang was producing, universal health care and free education for all, I would quit politics tomorrow. There's a lot more work to be done. We need to dismantle the current policing system in America and the criminal justice system in America that's created a prison pipeline, and rebuild it into something that's more restorative justice than punitive justice, like that we see in other countries like Norway, Switzerland, and in the a lot of Western European countries. We need to change the way we vote, allowing for more access to people who can't necessarily get to the voting polls on a weekday. There's so many things that we need to do to make this America great. But I think overall, what we need to do is really just make a more fair playing field for every single American. And I think that's what anti-fascists want to do in general. I can't speak for every single anti-fascist out there. There are going to be a ton of them who are like, bring back Stalinism. There are going to be people out there who are going to say, bring back Maoism. There's it's a wide umbrella, the same way the far right is a wide umbrella, or the right in general is a wide umbrella. People have all these types of ideologies, but for me, it's really just about creating a more equal America, creating an America where every single person has a fair opportunity, where every single person is on an equal playing field. And I don't feel like I am on an equal playing field as Jeff Bezos. I don't feel like I'm on an equal playing field as the Mercers. I don't feel like I'm on an equal playing field as the Waldorfs. I don't feel like I'm on an equal playing field as the Trumps. I don't feel like I'm on an equal playing field as the Bloombergs, or the Clintons, or any other one of these filthy, filthy, filthy rich people who have such a leg up in society, and their children will not want for anything in their entire lives while Americans are starving.
If you want to see more of this conversation, there is a lot more that's available on blazetv.com/slightly-offensive, where we give you a lot more content that, of course, is also not censored by YouTube and the other platforms that don't allow us to express our full ideas or thoughts without fear of censorship. Anyway, use the code Elijah at blazetv.com/slightly-offensive to get all of our content and much, much more. Thank you so much again for watching. Have a great rest of the week. Stay clean, wash your hands, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.